I wanted to share with you my experience with aftermarket versus OEM axles on my BMW 335xi. This probably applies to all BMWs. I don't race this car like hard or very often, so it's very unusual that the axles had problems. When I bought the car, the axle boot was originally torn, and I don't remember if it was an aftermarket or OEM axle. So I just bought a replacement one off of eBay, so that was $70. Within 10,000 miles, the boot ripped again, and then I bought another replacement. That one did not go inside the differential like it was supposed to, and I ended up sending that one back because it turns out they sent me like an X5 axle, which is bigger in diameter. Because of that, the company blamed me for that one, even though I bought the correct listed item, and I got charged a restocking fee and had to pay for return shipping. So I was out about $30 on that, $70 for the original axle that went bad, and then I had to buy another axle, so I bought that from a different company, and that was another $70, which now today has went bad again in about 10,000 miles. I just recently bought another axle, OEM, used, for $60 shipped, and the axle boots are in perfect condition, so I just installed it. On the driver's side, the only time I had an axle problem with that is when I accidentally installed my dyno and camber plates wrong. I put them on the opposite way, so it made the camber twice as off as it was supposed to be, and the axle shattered from that. But the axle was good before that happening. As a result of that happening, I went to the auto parts store, Advance, and I bought an axle, replaced it. Within 15 miles, not even 100 miles, within 15 miles, I was on the way to my parents' house, and the axle separated between the cup and the trunnion, and so I ended up pulling it out on the side of the road and then driving it home so I could repair it. I ended up replacing it with an OEM axle, and that was like 15,000 miles ago since I replaced it with an OEM axle, and I never had any problems since that point. A couple issues with buying the aftermarket axles is that the boots are not the same. So you can't get a replacement boot for the aftermarket axles, which makes them worthless when the boots tear. I think the boots are much higher quality on the OEM axles, which is why they last a lot longer. The total amount of money wasted with cheaper parts, because you could get an OEM axle for the BMW, but it's like over $800. I just ended up just buying some used ones for around 60 to 70 bucks. But if you were to go the way that I went, so I bought 2 aftermarket axles, well actually 3, because I bought one for the driver's side, so that was about $100. The 2 on the passenger side were about $70. Then I had to pay a restocking fee for something that wasn't my fault. So I was out about $170 for the one side and then $100 for the other side. So it was a waste of like 270 bucks. Plus, in addition to that, I had to buy some additional axles that were correct. So I bought the OEM replacements from cars that had like 100,000 miles. Another problem with the aftermarket axles is the clip at the end of the axle for the OEM is much better quality than the aftermarket one. The aftermarket one always jams up inside the differential and doesn't allow the axle shaft to come out when trying to be removed. The way I got around removing that axle, the aftermarket axle, when I had issues with that, is that I welded a chain to it and hooked up the slide hammer to the chain and yanked it out. When doing so, it bends the clip on the aftermarket axle because it drags it through the splines, and it can also leave some metal fragments on its way out of pulling it through like that. The OEM clips work really well. You can also take the OEM clip and put it on the aftermarket axles, and it fits perfectly fine. But the aftermarket axles are pretty much just junk, so just buy yourself some good quality OEM used axles and you'll save a lot more money.